I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Whitney Elkins-Hutten. Whitney is the Director of Investor Education at PassiveInvesting.com and a partner in $700 million of real estate, including over 5,000 residential units and more than 14,000 self-storage units across 8 states. 1,400. Yeah. I mean, either number is incredibly impressive. So I am really excited to hear all about your background and everything. But first, let me just say thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here. And sorry to interject, but I always like making sure the numbers are right. But I aspire one day to have 14,000 self-storage units.
Right. I was foreshadowing. Foreshadowing what the future holds for you. So, obviously, very impressive. And I think nobody starts there. So maybe you can give us some of your background and just kind of let us know where you came from, how you got into real estate, and we'll talk about how you got to such a large portfolio.
Yeah, definitely. So I got into real estate totally by accident. I bought my first property with a significant other in 2002 and it closed on the property. And about a month later, our relationship fell apart and it needed a rehab. I mean, that was the whole purpose of purchasing the property, as that's all we could afford. The loan and everything was under my name. And anyways, our realtor who was a common friend of ours, like really kind of helped coach us through the process. He was a big advocate of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He was like, buy the property, put the sweat equity in. Now you got a property and, all these things. And a lot of it just went right over my head. And, when the relationship fell apart, I was like, oh my, how am I going to how is this thing not going to financially ruin me? So I stuffed it full of roommates. They were paying the rent or the mortgage on the property. And I completed the rehab, paying a lot of my friends in beer and pizza and sushi. And, 11 months later, I sold the property, finally got it out of rehab. And that's when two things clicked for me. One, I made more that year with the property, selling the property, the gain on the property, than I did in my day job that I was trading 80 hours a week for. And then two, I hadn't been paying for any of my bills. Between the mortgage, all the utilities, my roommates have been paying for that. And these combined strategies are now called live-in flipping and house hacking. And then I realized I made a mistake. I sold the property when I should have put more renters in it and then moved on to do the next one. But needless to say, I was bitten by the real estate bug and did several more live-in flips solo, and then also with my husband today. And then we realized we didn't have financial freedom. It took us about a decade to realize, oh my gosh, how are people retiring off of this? We just have another full-time job. We were painting it, doing all the repairs at nights and on the weekends. And it really we hit a kind of a crossroads whenever we had our little baby girl. And I'm like, we can't keep this up. And then, so a friend of ours, again, pointed out this mistake, was just like, why don't you keep the property and put a renter in it? I'm like, genius. So like anything, I'm a very driven person. Once I finally see the light, we went from zero, long-term rentals in our portfolio to 30 in under 2.5 years. And then that's when we hit our next ceiling of achievement was, wanting to be able to tap into that cash flow in order to level up our life. And we had only planned for me to be able to exit my job, and my husband wanted to be able to exit his too. And I'm like, oh no, we need 80 properties to do that. And I'm like, I don't care what they say. Single family properties might be passive in income, but definitely not, even with property management, not passive truly with your time. Yeah. And so that's when we decided we need to move into multifamily real estate and start scaling our portfolio that way. And we did a lot of it passively through passive investments, true passive investments with experienced operators. And then we also became the operators ourselves on 10 deals.
Well, there's a lot there that I love. I mean, I can really resonate with the story a lot because I did the live-in flips. I did the house hacking, but it wasn't called that, right? It was just, I had roommates because I couldn't afford the mortgage myself, and I fixed things up because I couldn't afford to pay someone else to fix. You know what I mean? It's just, so I had a similar path in that, accidentally becoming an investor, and then yeah, you realize along the way that's really hard to scale those single family houses, and it sort of gives you that mindset shift. When did that happen? When did you sort of decide to switch into multifamily?
Yeah, so this was right. I'd always been, so a couple things happened. Let me kind of back it up. In towards the end of 2015 into 16, I had bought several single family properties. I wanted to be able to scale faster. And the only way I knew how to do that was to buy everything with our own cash. Now, I was using leverage. I was using, bank lending and financing on that, but I was just doing what I knew from owning primaries. So I hired a financial coach, actually, and to help me figure out how to organize my finances, use private money, use additional, resources that I had in my hand more efficiently. And when that happened, I broke up with the IRS. I don't suggest doing this, but I did. I was just like, I didn't, we modeled it out, and I was like, I'm going to take a bet on myself, and I'm going to pull my retirement funds and pay all the taxes and pay all the penalties. And we modeled that I would make up everything within inside 2 years. And then I would be able to grow it exponentially faster than if I left it in the IRA itself. Now, we did leave part of my gains in a self-directed IRA, and I invested those into passive deals. Now, we can argue all day long, was that the best thing to do? Don't know. However, I went into a passive deal just to kind of, again, I doubled down on real estate. And that's really when it kind of hit me that when I'm trying to figure out how to scale the multifamily side of the business, I kept going and looking at, what these other operators were doing with these deals that I was invested in my self-directed IRA. And I'm like, wait a second, this distribution comes in on a monthly basis, very regularly. I'm getting, refinance money back out. I'm getting capital return. And I mean, could I make a better return by doing it myself? More than likely, yes. But the return on my time, I hands down, I was getting a better return on my time with these passive investments in my portfolio or in my self-directed IRA. And so that's really when the multifamily bug bit us, is that, wow, we're investing in a scalable operating business with a trusted, valued operator who knows what they're doing. And that's the key, right? You can't just invest with anybody. You have to be with an experienced operator.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes total sense. I want to back up just a little bit because you said something there that I think is interesting. And when you talked about essentially getting all of those single family houses through your own money. So you got to 30 houses in 2.5 years in just using your own money. From a financing stand, so I guess that's one thing if you're uber wealthy and you have a bunch of money to buy them in cash. But there are a lot of problems that come with that level of scaling it on single family. So I wonder if maybe you would touch on that a little bit before we kind of continue into the multifamily side of things, because I think that's an important thing for a lot of people start out in that space.
Yeah, I left out some big golden nuggets here. So I like pointing it out. We've all heard the iceberg analogy, right? Iceberg, how much of it is above water? About 10, 15%, right? Much like people when they see other people that have built a portfolio, what you see are the numbers. That is probably the 10 or 15% above water. What's underwater? What's that foundation that they build it off of? So being able to scale that type of portfolio, there was 10 years in there that we were doing two things. One, remember, we're doing our own flipping deals, right? We're doing live-in flipping. Okay. House hacked when we could, whenever, it was feasible for us to, because I knew eliminating my housing bill was going to be a big thing for us to get rid of. But it didn't always work. We're a young couple. We want to have our own space too. Two, we also reduced our expenses to where, and I don't mean reduced our lifestyle. We reduced our expenses to the point where we were able to live off of one income and we completely saved the other income. Okay. Now, that was a tough balance because my husband's a spender. I'm a saver. So there was a lot of nights where I'm like, we've got to save more. My husband was like, no, we're going on vacation. This is happening. So that was a really interesting line to walk. Now, so we were building up buckets of capital, right? To be able to, save, and also arm ourselves. We knew we wanted to do something with it. When we started deploying it into single family real estate, we're putting 20% down on our first few properties. And then it dawned on me, because I'm seeing all these turnkey providers being able to turn properties really fast. You hear the BRRRR method, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, where people are recycling the same capital. So I actually ran out of money by deal 10. Yeah. Okay. Remember, I did 30 deals. I ran out of money at deal 10. And that's when I was just I hit a wall, or I was about to run out of money at deal 10. So what did we do? Okay. We started taking the remainder capital that we had left, and we started doing these BRRRR deals. Now it's kind of hard to do right now, but in this day, when we're buying, we were able to get a property, and be all in with our construction for rehab at about 65, 70% of the total value of the property. So we would put a tenant in, put a stream of income on the property, and then we'd refinance all or most of our capital back out. We're saving one of our paychecks on top of it. And then we would just go into the next deal. And we just, did that as quickly as we possibly could. We also didn't consume the cash flow from the properties for the first few years. We were dumping that all back into the business to be able to scale.
I mean, that's really an incredible pace. You basically talk about a house a month, right? If you did 30 houses in 2.5 years. So that's a very fast pace. And I think your you essentially accelerated the strategies that people used and compressed it all to a small time frame. But one of the things that I think comes up is the lending on that number of single families, and having to use I never got to this level in single family, but what I've heard is that people have to then go to a portfolio lender or something like that. How did you manage that? Because I think what I've also heard is that it's about that 10th property where that really becomes a problem. So what did you encounter there?
Yeah. So we first initially, my husband was like, this is your baby, not mine. I cheer you on, babe. Go for it. And I'm like, well, and as I started digging in, I'm like, yeah, you might not be as passive as you want to, because I think I'm going to need to use your credit here in a little bit. But we made sure we each could qualify for deals. So we set ourselves up, and dividing capital between the two of us, to where we each looked attracted to the lender. So I filled my 10 spots. Okay. Your golden tickets. Now, here's the thing. My husband and I, we owned our primary together. So I only got 9 golden tickets, and he only got 9. Now, we made sure we took advantage of those spots first. But when we started doing the rehab properties, that's really, we were able to step on the gas, because now the property carried the debt, not us personally. The underwriting was so much straightforward, as opposed to us being able to carry the debt of the property personally, that, could the property eventually pay for itself, carry all of the expenses. And when we did that, that's how we were able to buy almost sometimes 2 a month, because I could be qualifying for a commercial loan and my husband could be qualifying for a commercial loan at the same time.
Yeah. And I think I feel like the lending side of real estate investing is maybe the most important piece in all of it, is figuring out how to find the right lending for what you're trying to achieve, and, sort of talking to different lenders. And so
your story there, that progression, what you did is, a lot of people just get stuck there. They're like, oh, I've used up my tickets. Whatever you want to call it. I don't have the ability to keep going forward. But I love what you're saying there, because these are just things that, I don't know how you knew how to do them, but that people can listen to this and say, oh, okay, well, she figured out ways to get through this, and that there are ways around all of those little roadblocks if you really want it. So I think a really good lessons, but also, sort of good just mindset piece where you didn't say, oh, we're done. We got we did the most we could do. We're all done. Stop here. That kind of being creative, qualifying separately, all of that I think is really important pieces. So I did want to focus on that a minute, but we can go ahead and move on to then your transition into multifamily. How did you see that? What did that look like to you when you got to that point of deciding to make the switch?
Yeah. Well, to back it up, I want to make sure that I leave the listeners here with kind of, again, like a pearly nugget. It's two things. One, asking yourself, how can I, right? When you hit that, obstacle, like it's not I can't, but how can I? And then it's going to find the who, not the how. You don't have to find the resource. Go find the person who's already done it and ask them, right? I always use this analogy. I ask my coaching clients when I first bring them on, what is the shortest distance between two lines? And without a doubt, they all say, draw a straight line. And I'm like, no, it's 2 points. You fold the paper in half. That is, you got to be able to collapse the distance and collapse time. And that's where you get other people involved to help you out. I didn't have the answers, but I knew my lender did, because he invested in over 40 single family properties. He's got it figured out. And I just called him up and I'm like, can I, pay you for your time? Can you coach me on just this little piece? And so I did that over and over. That's just a kind of a recurring theme. Yeah. So when we get into how did I transition to multifamily? Again, this was kind of a little bit, the passive side, that was natural as far as me working with my financial coach, and he suggesting that if I vary my exposure in real estate, right? We always talk about diversify. It doesn't mean go get in stocks and bonds and stuff like that. But, what are the uncorrelated assets in real estate? Single family, multifamily, residential assisted living, self-storage. We've got car washes, we've got hotels. There's so many different things that you can get involved in real estate. So, I did not want to become an expert in all those areas. I didn't have time. I didn't even have the desire. But I knew I could access those by sourcing the best operators in those spaces. But for me to get into multifamily actively, again, that was another fortuitous encounter. I was at a real estate conference here in, my backyard in Denver, Colorado, and a friend of mine introduced me to Annie Dickerson, who, a lot of people know at Good Egg Investments. I love them, and we just hit it off. And they were looking for somebody to become, scale their business. I think I originally came on as, operations coordinator. I think they were actually looking for a virtual assistant. I'm like, no, you're not. You're looking for an operator. I've seen this job description. Yeah. there's no EA or VA that can handle this. So, really, that was my first foray into private equity, getting in on the active side of things. And so, spent years there helping scale that business. And, one of our partners that we worked with was passiveinvesting.com. So I've worked with passive investing on the active multifamily side for years. I, know Danny and Brandon, very well. I've invested personally in a lot of the deals as a limited partner, and now here I am. So again, sometimes those chance meetings, you just don't know what's going to come out of them and, how they'll eventually pan out.
Yeah. And I mean, people talk about how the importance of networking in real estate, and specifically multifamily is even more apparent how important it is, because you can do a lot in the single family space, probably without, you needed your lender, but you don't have all these different seats that people sit in terms of, trying to get multifamily deals and syndications together. So why don't you talk a little bit about your role and kind of what you do, what that looks like within passiveinvesting.com?
Yeah, definitely. So, again, my previous role before coming to passiveinvesting.com was in the director of investor relations and operations. And I love it. I'm a very competitive person and very driven. And at the same time, I had this kind of like internal struggle, what was my why in life? Like, what do I want to do? What like lit me up in the morning? And, I was competitive myself on, completing the raise piece of things. But what really lit me up was just talking to investors and introducing to them the power of real estate in general, but also for those people, high net worth income earners, tired landlords that have a lot of equity in their properties, or just really busy professionals. Like, how can you still get exposure to real estate, leverage the power of real estate as a tool to achieve your goals in life? And that is, again, that's what lit me up. And I really just tried to figure out like, where does this next iteration of my career go? And Danny and I were talking on the phone one day, and he goes, "Do you like the raise?" I'm like, "Nah, yes and no." And he was like, "Well, what would you do?" And I was like, "I would just talk to investors all day long. That's all I would do." He was like, "Done." So, that's how I'm here. I have a counterpart on the investor relations side, Andrew. He lives for the raise. He lives for it, and he loves it, and that's his zone of genius. And so, I just, like I said, I just love educating people and showing them that you don't have to become a real estate guru in order to reap the rewards and advantages of real estate.
Yeah. I mean, and that's 100% true. And this, I really love talking to people that are good at capital raising and investor relations and things like that, because I personally feel like that's a struggle point for me. I think it's just one of those things that I don't know. It's uncomfortable. I'm trying to get better with it, but I know that it is something that I need to work on. But I just love the people that are good at it. It's just a whole different skill set. And maybe you can talk a little bit about obviously you're easy to talk to. You've got a great personality. I don't think it's not like people are going to have a hard time talking to you, but how do you use that? What tips might you give to people that are, out there raising capital to help them interact better with investors and sort of create that relationship?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things here. So I will try to not go to off.
I know it's not one single tip. Yeah, there's
keep it crowd here. Yeah. So, before this, I was working, I did 11 years. Actually, I came from public health. Okay. So my in public health, especially like in community outreach type positions, you have to be able to sell people on really tough things. But the power of public health is usually that person 110% believes in what they're trying to sell. Mm-hmm. For me, I was in the middle of I ran a condom distribution program for the state of Louisiana, and we needed, it was hard to do all sorts of like types of education within the community. I'll keep this part very brief, but I full on believed in what I was doing. And so I think if you know what you're doing, and you 110% believe that it is the solution for that person, it will ooze out of your skin whenever you have a conversation with them. So that's kind of obstacle number one. Like, you have to believe in the product that you're selling. So it goes back to, my 11 years in community health and nutrition, working for a retail chain pharmacy. I, being a practitioner on the floor, I had to believe in all the products in my store in order to, create rapport, but also close the sale. Same thing here in real estate. So I think most of us carry that with us. I think the second obstacle that people have is twofold. Like, you can go either direction. One, they don't want to hear no. Okay, getting over that fear of no. And the only way you're going to get over that fear of no is to actually have many, many, many conversations. And then eventually you'll just be like, you'll start hearing no as not now. Okay. Which most of the time it is, especially whenever we're doing a raise, you're not going to be able to ask most of the time, an investor that you just randomly bumped into at the coffee shop for $50,000. That's just not how this works. It's a relationship business. So putting yourself out there, putting yourself in conversation with them, and having like multiple touches with them before you do a hard ask for that type of money. I think the industry standard says 7. And I think that brings me up to kind of the other obstacle is putting yourself out there. I think a lot of us have a fear of like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think of me if I put myself out there? I stumble. I sometimes say the wrong words. Anybody that knows me really well knows me that I'm horrible at spell checking my emails. So I had to get over those fears, but you know what that makes me? It makes me relatable because we're all, all of us deep down, are kind of like that. And so I don't know, those have been what's worked really well for me, are just kind of like those 3 like little nuggets, but it took practice. You have to do your 10,000 hours. You have to do the lift. You have to put yourself out there. Yeah. And like any bell curve, right? Like we're talking about marketing. You put yourself out there, 20% of the people are going to like engage with you, love you. They're your followers. 20% are going to hate you. Like you don't get it. You don't understand why the hate, why the animosity. And then the other like 60% in between, you're going to have to do a lot of work on, right? Like you're going to have to, massage that relationship and date a while before, you can, kind of close the deal with them.
Right. No, it's a great way to put that in terms of that breakdown of people you talk to. But I also think, those 3 things you touched on, the belief in what you're selling, right? Whether it's, an investment opportunity or pharmaceutical product, whatever it is, right? The belief in what you're selling is number one. I think if you don't strongly believe in it, you're probably in the wrong spot, right? You probably shouldn't be raising capital for something that you don't strongly believe in. So that one is, I find that's the easy one for me, right? Like I 100% believe in it. I think everybody should be invested in real estate. Like I think that's the right way to go. I understand that not everybody is going to, but it's not like the belief part of it's not a problem. But yeah, the most people don't like to hear people say no. They feel like it's a bit of a personal rejection. And it's not. It's just I like that you said, it's not a no, it's a not now, because that people maybe they don't want to invest with you the first time. Maybe they don't want to invest with you the third time, but then they see what's going on and they come back around. So I think that's a really great way to put it. And then, just putting yourself out there and not being afraid of what people think and your willingness to be a human, whether that's with spell check or whatever it is, but that's just that's it. Like people they don't want to invest with a robot. They want to invest with someone they can relate to and get along with. So I think that's all really great advice. You specifically said you're not a huge fan of the raise, which maybe just for listeners that don't necessarily know, do you want to explain the difference between that part and what you do kind of instead of, I'm sure you're a part of the raise too, but kind of the difference between you and your counterparts, sort of specific roles? Yeah.
So, the raise is like whenever you have an active deal and it's open. So the operator, the team is generally in the due diligence period. And, let's go back, make it tangible. Like if you have a property under contract and you have like 30 days to do your due diligence and gather your funds, get all your lending documents together and get it closed, right? And just same thing, like, on say like a multifamily or self-storage deal or whatever, we generally will have like a due diligence period of say 45 or 30 days and then 30 days to close, or maybe 2 weeks due diligence and 30 days to close. And so once we get really, pretty much, we are fairly certain we are going to get through due diligence with unscathed or with like very few bumps in the road, we start putting the deal together. And that activates the team, the investor relations team, to work with marketing, to get the operating memorandum together, start getting all the, the deal funnel put together, all the things for the investor services needs, the PPMs, all the legal paperwork. There's a lot that goes into that. And so, and then you've got to put it out in front of your investors. And then, a lot of investors, especially if it's their first time investing with you, want to have another conversation, or maybe it's a new market. Or maybe it's a new vertical, right? Right now, we are raising on a hotel deal. This is a new vertical for us. We've been researching it and working through it for over 2 years. We're super excited, but we have a lot of investors that are like, hey, we want to touch base with you before we write this check. And so that's kind of what I call the raise piece, is having that short time period that it's really like, go, 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 go. It's nights, it's weekends. Some people live for it, and other people, kind of can be a little bit energy draining. I like it. I'm a very competitive person. However, like whenever I take a look at what I love more, it's actually just having those general conversations with people about their goals, their dreams. What do they want to create? Helping them answer some of the questions about what might fit best in their portfolio. I'm not an investment advisor, but if I jump on the phone with somebody and we're talking through a bunch of questions and we identify they need huge depreciation to offset some sort of capital gain they've got going on. Well, we're not, I might talk to them about getting into multifamily or, it's some sort of asset class that would offer a larger depreciation than, say, self-storage that has a shorter depreciation schedule. So I help people kind of rethink how some of these assets would play in their portfolio, and also, help them think about what they can diversify, the operator, the deal, and the market. I have some investors that are like, I will only invest in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm like, why? There's a whole world out there. So, we have conversations like, how can, you construct a portfolio that, again, has that diversification into it and, take advantage of, multiple markets to make money.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, there's both aspects of that, capital raising or investor relations piece are stressful at times, but yeah, the raise is when everything's compressed into a particular time period, and then it really becomes a race. And I think the trick with that is to not feel or come off as desperate that, I really need to get, you're in your role outside of the raise. If you're a problem solver, as you said, you're telling people, helping them diversify, helping them solve whatever specific financial problem or opportunity they're looking for, in that, if they need depreciation, or they're looking for a cash flow deal, or you're looking for maybe a development deal, whatever the case may be, knowing those different options to guide them, I think is really a great space to be in. And that's actually, I would say that's probably what I agree, or what I prefer in that whole capital raising area too, because there's less of that, I guess, time pressure as it happens when you're in the actual race to close phase. So I appreciate you sort of spelling that out, just so people understand kind of what happens on that side of things. So why don't we switch gears, and I'll go ahead and ask you the questions that I like to ask every guest, so that I don't keep you too long. I love the capital raising topic and could ask you a million questions, but we'll switch gears here. And I will start with the first one, Whitney, which is what I ask every guest, is related to the name of the show, but what is your why? What drives you?
Oh, I'm in pursuit of the 5 freedoms of life. And so freedom, financial freedom, time freedom, freedom of choice, freedom of location, and freedom of impact. And so in those, freedoms that I'm in pursuit of, it's to be with family and friends and travel. That's again, I think I'm not, real estate is not like what I desire to do. It's a tool. I think it's a very powerful tool to give me what I want out of life.
Right. Yeah. I that's a great point. I think that, working within the real estate space can be very, very enjoyable, but I think ultimately what everybody using it for is to achieve those freedoms in life. I think that's ultimately the goal for nearly everyone in the space. So it makes a ton of sense. Tell us something about yourself that maybe isn't common knowledge, special skill, a hobby, something your interest that maybe not everybody knows about you.
Ooh. I've got a lot of hobbies. So I don't know. I will tell you, because I'm actually like looking out the window. It's not a skill or a special hobby, but something about me that most people don't know is I come off very energetic and, go all the time. But if it's raining out, I'm the first person to cancel a meeting and curl up on the couch with a good movie and popcorn. So that is something that is a little known about me, but
relate.
Right. But special skill, I think, really just taking the complex and distilling it down into simple, actionable steps for people. I think we tend to, not only from, in real estate and finance, come up with this kind of like crazy terms and buzzwords and, names for strategies that just boggle people's mind. It really isn't that complicated. We can really strip things down and make it far more accessible for people. And that's what I love doing. I was just doing a webinar today over hotels because we have a new hotel deal out, and we had to like go through a Rolodex of like terms that people were like, "Well, hold on, what does that mean again? What does that mean again?" I was just like, "Okay, let's equate it back to multifamily." And they're like, "Oh, well, why did we change the term?" I'm like, "Because that's what we use in the hotel space."
Right. Because that's what people do. They just like to make it a little more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally understand that. And I'm sure that the ability to simplify these things is incredibly useful in what you're doing in your specific role. Speaking of this, when people want to reach you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me at passiveinvestingwithwhitney.com. And there you can register, to see our deals, but also get some free goodies. I have a checklist and an ebook for people there. You can also take a peek at my calendar and hop on there if you want to schedule time with me. And we can talk about all things real estate, especially if you want to get into passive real estate. I'm happy to, just to talk shop with people. Awesome.
Final question for you, Whitney. What is a piece of advice you would give to someone who is starting out as an investor? And you can choose to answer that either as an active or a passive investor, whichever way you like.
Yeah, I think my answer would be the same for both. Is ready, fire, aim. That first deal, I'm not saying don't go into the deal, whatever, if it's single family, multifamily, passive deal, totally blind with no education and with somebody that, that isn't a good operator or, helping you out. I'm talking about, don't be perfectionist. Don't get stuck in deal analysis. That first deal you're going to learn so much more by just getting into the deal than you would if you just sat on the sidelines. Right now in today's environment, we're recording this May 2021 or 2022. Ooh, excuse me. I lost a year there. Time flies. Right. But I mean, interest rates are going up. Inflation is running rampant, and a lot of people are chasing yield, and they're trying to go, well, maybe I'll just wait for asset prices to come down. Guys, the values in the debt, when is that, they're waiting for the recession to hit and things to tank. That normally doesn't happen. 2008 aside, which was a whole different beast, but getting in now and getting into a solid deal that can grow over time and grow your cash flow over time, that's huge.
Yeah, totally agree. I think the deals all just come down to a math problem. So it doesn't really matter that the interest rates have come up. It's a math problem. And along with the interest rates coming up, but the rental growth is huge. So it's kind of, it works itself out. I think you're right. Just get in there and find a way to make your money, make money. That's really what it comes down to.
I mean, some of the deals, on these single family properties that I still have left, I mean, they maybe penciled out at 10%, cash on cash initially when I bought them, which is fantastic. those same deals might only pencil out to 5% cash on cash. Where they are today, though, over time, they're like at 17, 18, 20% cash on cash.
Right.
So you just might have to wait a little bit for that growth to happen, for rents to catch up for the asset prices. But you get paid so many other ways in real estate. It's not all about the cash flow right now.
100% agree. 100% agree. Well, listen, thank you so much, Whitney. I really enjoyed the conversation and all that you shared. I think people get a lot of value out of it and really, can learn from you. And I'm sure they'll be happy to reach out to you and perhaps become an investor in one of your deals.
Awesome. Well, again, passive investing with Whitney.com. If I can be a resource to anybody, hit me up.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And with that, we'll go ahead and sign out. Have a great day.
I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.